Well, that brings us to the one of two topics we're going to spend the last hour on. The first one, we're going to hear from Nancy Erden and Wilson Floor. Tell us about Go Virginia. And, they have been a big part of our success in funding two of our plans. But we're going to turn it over to you guys to walk us through where Go Virginia is now and what the future looks like. So,
Great. Well,
Nancy.
thank you, John. And Wilson and I will take it from here. What we thought we would do is I'm going to do a very brief overview of Go Virginia at the Commonwealth level. Then I'll speak a little bit about Region 5 and then turn it over to Wilson for Region 4. And then we also have teed up, each of us collectively, some ideas about working together as we move ahead. So maybe just to back up, what is Go Virginia? Let's sort of look big picture at the Commonwealth. This is an amazing program, was actually started by the business community in 2015. And I absolutely have to give a shout out and commendation to W. Wynn. He clearly was one of the business leaders at that time to push for this. And the whole point was to really do a couple things. One was to have a bigger role for the business community in economic development. The other was to foster more collaboration among all the units of government. And the third was to really make sure that we were incenting, as a Commonwealth, activities that were really going to drive job creation and innovation. And so this program now has been around since that time very successfully. A couple of key points. The Commonwealth is divided into 9 regions. Of course, Hampton Roads, as you can see, big picture all the way to the Eastern Shore, and then Isle of Wight and everything in between is Region 5. And then Wilson will talk a little bit about Region 4. Incidentally, the structure is starting to have some merit as well in other parts of the Commonwealth. So the chancellor for the community college system recently discussed how he wants to have the community colleges within the Go Virginia regions collaborate. So in our case, in Region 5, we have 4 amazing ones that are obviously doing some alignment. So anyway, this is the overall structure. On the next slide, you'll see just a quick picture of how much money to date. This is just a state dollar, so fairly sizable here across the Commonwealth. And the 4 areas that Go Virginia really focuses on, first of all, it's all around building industry clusters, but within that, it focuses on workforce development, startup ecosystems, cluster scale up, so growing industries, and then site development. And this is really the really early stuff. So this is not competing in any way, shape, or form with the mega site work that VEDP, but really preparing smaller sites. And so you can get a rough idea. Workforce, of course, has been a priority for a lot of reasons. And workforce typically means we're building pathways and connections, not necessarily just funding individual programming. So that's kind of the big picture here at the Commonwealth level. Currently, it'll be up, of course, for renewal in the General Assembly. Historically, we have, we as an organization really have not advocated for its support. And I think this is something perhaps we do need to add to the agenda, is that this has been a really incredible resource in the Commonwealth, but specifically in Regions 4 and 5. So turning to Region 5 for a moment, the thing I want to point out with this slide is in our region, we don't just take Go Virginia as, okay, well, it's another thing we're supposed to do and figure out how to coordinate it. We've actually intentionally aligned, which I want to point out, a number of our organizations that relate to economic development. And so my organization, the Executive Roundtable, really plays a primary role in terms of the thought leadership, the strategy, identifying problems and issues that need to be solved, incorporating innovation, and of course, being the support organization for Go Virginia Region 5. We have a separate council, which is, we are fortunate to have Tom Franz as our council chair, and Lynn Taylor, who's president of Zeltec, is our vice chair. And so we have really an amazing leadership group from the business community, and we've added on the roundtable some higher ed and also growth companies. And then I want to point out on the left, we have something called the Regional Organizations Presidents Council. It's sort of our contribution to the mic. And it's really coordinated by our 2 chairs of the chambers. So Bob McKenna for Virginia Peninsula and Brian Stevens from the Hampton Roads Chamber. And it includes all of our big regional groups, Alliance, Workforce, Hampton. I won't go through the list, but the point remains, we have really tried to align this and make sure that as we come up with legislative agendas, problems to solve in the region, and obviously alignment with RVA757, that we're thinking about that. And so all of that is instrumental in why we and how we use our Go Virginia money. So on the next slide, just to roll quickly, all of us in Go Virginia have to do an update this year on our growth and diversification plans. This is an every 2-year requirement. And so for Region 5, we did not have a lot of changes from 2 years ago, which probably does not surprise you. And it probably does not surprise you to see these are some of the priority clusters that clearly revolve around water. So we've broken out port operations and logistics, advanced manufacturing, cyber and data analytics, continuation on shipbuilding, ship repair, particularly as it talks about the current state as well as innovation, a range of water technologies, uncrewed systems and unmanned systems and aerospace. And then last year we added life science, although compared to Region 4, we really are younger at life science, but certainly we have a full-blown series of industry clusters here with some of the industries mentioned above that connect to water. On the next slide, you'll see sort of how our dollars look in Region 5. And so this is a cumulative total. We've had an investment of about $54 million, which includes the match funds as well as the Go Virginia funds. And again, no real surprise, the bulk of our dollars have gone into talent development because that has been a real gap here in the region in terms of making sure that we were able to support the industry development. And then just a couple of quick examples of some of the projects that have been most influential. This one we're particularly excited. I have to give a shout out to the Hampton Roads Workforce Council and Sean Avery. They have been a recipient of several Go Virginia Talent Pathway grants, Navy grants, and they were able to successfully scale this very recently to win $11 million from EDA for the Good Jobs Challenge. And this is all around maritime. So once again, we're trying to make sure that we really put a full court press on that first cluster for us. And this is just a great example of how Go Virginia money has been leveraged to achieve this. And obviously there's a lot more that the Workforce Council is doing. On the next slide, you will see a very recent announcement last week. 757 Collab is our main door, if you will, for the innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Region 5. Again, recipient of a Go Virginia grant over time. And they were recently able to win an EDA Built to Scale award by partnering with a couple of other organizations, Black Brand, SBDC, and Innovate Hampton Roads, several of which have also received Go Virginia. So again, good idea of leverage. A big area that we often overlook with Go Virginia is a source of planning grants, things that need to be looked at. And this is no small issue because, you know, John and Wilson and I, we'd all be running around knocking on doors looking for planning money. But you know what? Because we're looking for activities that are going to grow our clusters, we can often make a case to Go Virginia. And so this is one very great example. I want to call out the Hampton Roads Alliance, which led a group to look at the long-term energy roadmap for our region, because it does impact all of our clusters, thinking about it as a portfolio of current and new. So that's an example. On the next slide, you will see another really exciting one around green hydrogen. Actually, this was moved into implementation for how green hydrogen can be a source of energy. And again, call out to Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center, led that with a number of partners. And then on the next one, you'll see another quick example. This is something that we built a number of Go Virginia planning grants around uncrewed systems that we had given to Visa, some workforce planning grants, and we put together a coalition of 100 groups and applied for an EDA grant in uncrewed system excellence. And you can see the region. So while we didn't get it, we are moving ahead and we'll be actually going back to Go Virginia to actually build out a cluster. So you can see the story here. It's a build story. And Go Virginia money is like investment capital. Tom Franz often calls it our angel investment dollars. And that's truly, truly what it is. So just to close and then to switch over to Wilson, on the next slide, these are some of the areas that we see working together with Region 4. We've done some work already in life sciences that Wilson will talk about. The I-64, that really is Global Internet Hub. That in particular is one that we see. John mentioned Jefferson Lab, and then clearly we want to start aligning our industry scale-up work between the two regions. So with that, I'm just going to flip it over to Wilson, who's got a lot to talk about in Region 4.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Nancy. Nice to see everybody, and thanks for the opportunity for us to talk about Go Virginia and our region. When we look at our region, we have two fairly distinctive areas. Obviously, the Richmond area has a little more wealth. And when we look at grants for Go Virginia, we look at high-paying jobs. So the average high-paying job in the Richmond region, and it's called, is $55,000. If we look at the crater planning area of Petersburg and South, with many jurisdictions that are economically distressed, it's about $45,000 down there. So very distinctive, different, and I might say that it was when we look at Petersburg and South, that was impacted 20, 30, 40 years ago because of the reduction in the tobacco trade back then. Going forward, next slide talks about our industry clusters, which, not unlike Nancy, have not changed really since the beginning in our first plan in 2017. However, we've added a potential emerging cluster, which is controlled environmental agriculture. And this is really growing products inside, and we see more of it, and it's a great use of space as well as really clean environmental agriculture. Go ahead, next slide, please. Here's our breakdown of we've spent about, invested in our grants about $11 million. So we have a way to catch up with Nancy's 19 or $20 million of grants. We're always a little competitive, but not too competitive. But again, not unlike Region 5, workforce development, and throughout the whole Commonwealth has been a real focus and a lot of our initial projects. Let's move on to the next one. Let me speak a little bit about our projects like our pharmaceutical manufacturing scale-up. And Ted described it very, very well this morning. But I might say that I think many of us are aware that most of our generic drugs, 80 and actually maybe 90% of them, come from China. And essentially that's getting the main ingredients for our generic medicines for the United States. And besides that, one of the issues, there's very little oversight by the FDA. A great book, if you want to read something about China, China RX, which focuses attention on that issue. So a group got together from Petersburg and Richmond and created with VCU from the first grant of the Gates Foundation. It was called Medicines for All, which was a focus on medications not only in America but also in Africa. And the Gates Foundation really helped create that idea. Following that, the group from Petersburg leaders as well as Richmond leaders created Alliance for Better Medicines. And with that, received $52,900,000 for a Build Back Better grant. Very significant. Civic RX, and actually Civic RX, the team was at SIR the other night. We have Flow and Ampac Fine Chemicals all in the Petersburg area. And some of this money has been already dedicated to workforce development, and it's proceeding around very nicely, but it's really given us a focus on this cluster and really to get to be well known for onshoring generic drugs. Let's move on to the next one, please. This is a workforce development program called FAME. We think it's marvelous, and a great illustration of the combination of having a college and our manufacturing companies working together. So you have students that have graduated from high school, spend 3 days a week in a paid internship. And I might say in year one, we even heard that one of the interns received stock options from the company he was working with. And then they spend 2 days in at Richard Bland studying. And after 2 years, they're eligible to work full time with these companies. Let's move on to the next one is really site development. And the example here we have in our Crater Planning District, it's the Virginia Gateway Region Site Development Program, 15 sites. And if you look at VDP, when they identified sites around the state, about 25% of their top sites were in our region. And clearly because of I-64 and I-95, it makes a lot of sense. But these sites would be tiered up from tier 2 to tier 4. Tier 5 is shovel ready sites. And importantly, we need to have more sites around the Commonwealth that are tier 4, tier 5. And again, manufacturing, logistics, and data centers are excellent uses of these sites. The next one is the Virginia BioConnect, and we have 5. It's a competitive grant being led here in the Richmond area. We have 5 participating regions, and this is a great way to really build the bio and life science category throughout the state, sharing a lot of best practices, and enhancing and really building internships. It's absolutely vitally important, but collaboration is one of the best ingredients of all this, and good mentorships, and it's working out great. Lastly, as Nancy mentioned, we are always looking for good projects for both Region 5 and Region 4. Last night, we had a presentation that was made from our regional entrepreneurial initiative, and there were probably 100 folks here listening to the collaborations that are occurring in our region and looking at opportunities of how do we build this entrepreneurial class, because that's how you grow the economy, with entrepreneurs working together. And the one point that was made throughout the whole evening was collaboration. Older entrepreneurs have a lot more experience, and if they collaborate and help mentor others, we're going to create a lot of new businesses. Obviously, Jefferson Labs, our global internet hub, and life sciences. So if there's any concept that you all get out of this, Nancy and I and our teams are looking for good projects for Go Virginia. We both have money to spend. And when we look at the budget from the government or from the state, we need to spend our Go Virginia dollars and do it in a very productive way where we get a great return on investment. So bring us projects, bring us ideas.